Hi guys, it's Professor Palumbo here. I want to walk you through a couple things in Chapter 9 web programming. It's a little bit different than any of the programming we've done so far because we've been working in Windows. Some of the controls look a little different and the forms look a little bit different, so I thought I would walk you through a few things. I'm going to actually start you into Chapter 9 Hands-On. The book does a pretty good job of walking you through the Chapter 9 Hello project, which is a simple little Hello World type project. But in Chapter 9 Hands-On, there's a few things that I think need a little bit more explanation. So I'm going to start out by clicking File, New Website, and I'm going to select Empty Website. The way that the location or the file name is listed down at the bottom, first of all, is a little bit different. You need to browse to the location of where you want to have your project. So I'm just going to go out to my C drive and go to my Visual Basic Projects folder. And then I'm going to click Open. And then after that, then you have to supply a backslash in the name of your project. So I'm going to call it Chapter 9 Hands-On. And then I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So it's a little bit different. Now it opens up, but there's a project there, but there's no form. So we have to go to Website, Add New Item, and you're going to add a web form. The first form you add, which is your home page, is going to be called default.aspx, and we're going to click Add. So we're going to leave that name the way it is. It opens up this web form, and up here we're in like a division divider, and we don't want to start writing our code there. So we're just going to click into the body of the website. And this is where we're going to create our table. We're going to use a table to keep everything lined up because we have a lot of labels and text boxes and buttons and things, and we want to align them. And it's easier to keep everything aligned the way we need it if we use a table. So I'm going to click Table, Insert Table, and I'm going to use a 9 by 3 table. So 9 rows, 3 columns. Click OK. It's kind of hard to see, but the lines are kind of faint in there, but you should be able to see them. Now the first row going across the top, I'm going to select all 3 cells, and I'm going to right click and click Modify Merge Cells. And what that does is it merges all 3 of those top cells together into one. And then I'm going to type in my heading, RN book sales. Oops, book sales. Then I'm going to select it. Now, if you have your formatting toolbar open, you can, if you're not sure, you can right click on your toolbar and you can see if your formatting toolbar is open, which mine is. If it's not, then click it and it will open up. And in your formatting toolbar, you have these styles, and I'm just going to select heading 1. And it just gives it a certain style. It gives it a font and a font size and so on and so on. Then also in your formatting toolbar, you have a drop-down list for alignment, and I'm going to justify center to center that heading in the top. Then I've got 3 cells going across. In the first column on the left, I'm going to put in my labels. Quantity, I'm not going to do all of them just so that I'm not boring you, but I'll just do the first 3, quantity, title, and price. And you'll notice that it kind of like makes that column really wide. You can play with these, but the first thing I'm going to do is select it. I'm going to right justify those labels. And then I'm just going to put my pointer on the dividing line of that column and just kind of drag it back over a little bit so that it's not so, that column isn't so big. Then I need to add some text boxes. So I'm going to come into my toolbar and locate text box, and I'm going to drag my first text box in here, and I'm going to call it. Now the property for the name is a little different. It's not called name, it's called ID. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to call this quantity text box, and then I'm going to add another one, and I'm going to call it title text box. And if I could spell right, it wouldn't be such a problem. One more for the price text box. And there we go. And price text box. Okay, so I've got those 3 controls. Then, just add the rest of them. There's an extended price, a discount text box, discounted price text box, And then there's a couple of labels. You'll see on page 387, there's an error message label and there is a discount total label. So you'll be adding those into the cells. Then, just kind of keep readjusting the size of your three columns so that one doesn't get too big and one doesn't get too small. I'm going to add some of my buttons. So I'm going to drag button down into here and I'm going to call it, first of all, the text on it. I'm going to put submit and I'm going to call it submit button. Then what I like to do is click on the button, then hit the right arrow key on your keyboard to take your cursor off of the button, then hit enter a couple times, and then add another button to the same cell. And this is going to be my clear button, but I just want to have a little bit of space in between them. So by using the right arrow and coming off the button, then you can hit enter a couple times and give yourself a couple of spaces. And then one more button, but this one I'm going to put in the next column over, and this is my discount summary button. And this is going to display a summary of all the discounts that have been given. And I'm going to call it discount summary button. Okay. All right, so those are just a few of the buttons. Actually, those are the only buttons. The other thing I want to show you is a hyperlink. So I'm going to drag hyperlink over here and drop it in. And this is going to take us to another page that's going to be part of our website. The text on here is going to say contact us, but we have to create our other page, which is our contact page. So to do that, I'm going to click website, add new item. I'm going to add another web form, but I'm not going to call it default 2. I'm going to call it contact info. Contactinfo.aspx. I'm going to click add. That takes me into another website. Now for this one, I'm going to insert a table that is a 4x2 table just to help me line things up. And in my second column, I'm going to select and drag down, and I'm going to select all 4 of those cells and I'm going to merge them together, because what I'm going to do here, I'm going to click modify merge. I'm going to be putting a graphic over there. In my other 4 cells on the right, I'm just going to say contact us, email us at whatever. Here's our phone number. Okay, and so then once you've got the text that you want, to insert the graphic in the cell to the right, we're going to drag an image control and drop it in. It's kind of like a picture box, but it's called image in the website. And what we have to do is we have to go out and get the image that we want to have in our project. So I have to go out to my Windows Explorer, and the payphone graphic is located inside the data folder, inside the student data folder that's out on Blackboard. So go into student data, go into graphics, and that payphone graphic will be there. So what I'm going to do is, all you need to do is right click and copy the graphic from your folder. Then come back into Visual Basic and right click in your Solution Explorer and paste it in. So now your payphone graphic is listed inside Solution Explorer there. So now when you go to put in the properties of this image, so let me make sure I'm clicked on my image, come over into the properties window, and I have a property that I need to set called image URL. And the image URL is the graphic that's going to be displayed. So I'm going to click the little build button, and now that I've added the payphone graphic to my Solution Explorer, I can see it listed there, and I can click OK and bring that graphic in. Okay, so now I've pretty much got my contact info page done. The last thing I need is a hyperlink to get me back to my home page. So I'm going to drag that in down there, and on my hyperlink I'm going to say return to home. And now I've got to tell it how to return. So my navigate URL property is the property I need to go to tell it how to get back home or get to that web page. I'm going to click the little build button. And my home page is default, so I'm going to select default and click OK. So now it knows where to go. Let's go back to my default. Okay, now I'm going to run this just to test my hyperlinks. Oh, In my contact, I have to set my hyperlink here. So navigate URL now that I've created my contact info page. And for my home page, contact us hyperlink, I'm going to click the little buttons and select contact info as the location of where I want to navigate to. So now I'm going to run this. Now the run button looks a little bit different. You'll see the name of your default browser on your run button because when we run this, it's going to simulate a web server and it's going to open up our web browser and it's going to look like we're running this in a web browser. And there we go. I'm in Internet Explorer. You can see the dummy web server is called localhost 2274. And I can click my link to go to my contact page. And I can click my link to return home. And then I can do whatever other logic is going to be inside my submit button, my clear button, and my discount summary button. Okay, so I'm just going to close out of there, come back into Visual Basic. There's one other thing that I want to talk about that's a little bit tricky, and that is the validators. Okay, we didn't have any validators in the Chapter 9 Hello project. What the validators do is it allows us to put certain restrictions on what can be entered into our text boxes in our web page. You guys have all gone out to websites and filled out forms, and sometimes you forget to fill out one of the fields, and it'll come back when you hit your submit button. It'll come back and say, oh, you didn't fill in your phone number or you didn't fill in your email address. Well, we want to do the same type of thing for the two fields that we have to do our logic. And those two fields are the quantity and the price. So I'm going to add my validators for quantity and price. If you scroll down in your toolbox toolbar, you'll see you have a validation section. And you're going to go ahead and expand that validation section. And the two types of validators we're going to be using are the required field validator and the range validator. The range validator is going to allow us to force the user to enter in a certain type of data. But let's do the required field validator first. Now I'm going to drag this over and put it in the third column over, but across from my quantity text box, and drop it in. Okay, I'm going to call this, the name is going to be quantity required field validator. Whoops. I think I deleted something here. Validator. No. Okay. So I'm going to call it quantity required field validator. Okay. Now what I have to set for this is the control that I'm trying to validate. So there's a property here called control to validate. And I'm going to click that and I'm going to tell it that I'm validating my quantity text box. Then the other thing I need, if I scroll down, is my error message. Now, typically in a website, if you don't fill in a required field, they give you an asterisk. I mean, you could put more than that if you wanted to. You could say asterisk required field, or you can put whatever message you want there, but I'm just going to leave it as an asterisk because that's how they do it in the book. Okay, then I'm going to click off of that over here, and I'm going to add my other validator, which is my range validator. Now with the range validator, we have to supply a little bit more information than just what the name of it is and what our error message is. So I'm going to first of all give the name quantity range validator. Then I'm going to come down and again tell it which control I'm validating, and that is my quantity text box. I'm going to come down again and put in my error message. And for my error message, they want us to say 1/100 only. We're only going to allow the user to enter a quantity between 1 and 100. Now, to force that to happen, we have to come down and put in a maximum and a minimum value. The maximum is going to be 100. The minimum is going to be 1. Okay, so we have to set those. And then that's basically it for the quantity range validator. Now for price, we're going to do the same thing with the required field. We're going to put it in the column across from price. We're going to name it price field validator, and then price field, required field validator. Then I'm going to come down and tell it the control to validate for this one is the price field, the price text box. And my error message is going to say, what do they want for price? Actually, this is the required field, so I'm just going to have an asterisk. And then for my range validator for my price, I'm going to drag that in, set the name to price range validator. And I'm going to set my control to validate is my price text box. My error message is going to be must be numeric. Now for this one, it doesn't have a specific price range. It only is saying that it has to be a numeric field. So the way we're basically validating this is by setting our data type. So we're going to go down to type and we're going to set the type property to be currency. So we're forcing our user to enter a numeric value. If they try and put in a word for the price, it's going to give them our error message. And our error message says must be numeric. Now I put a little note in the assignment schedule that there's a problem with this. If you run it like this, you're going to get an error and it's going to say that there's no maximum and minimum. Now the book didn't tell us to put in a maximum and a minimum, but with a range validator, it's required that we have a maximum and minimum. So what I'm going to do for my maximum is just put in like a million, or just, put in a bunch of nines. I think I told you to just put in a whole bunch of nines in there for the maximum. And for the minimum, I'm just going to put 1. But you have to have some sort of a maximum and a minimum range in there for that to work. So that's how you do your validation. The only other tricky little thing that I just want to point out is in the code. When we get into your code, you're going to be coding your submit button by double clicking on it. You're going to be coding your clear button by double clicking on it. And you're going to be coding your discount summary button, and that's called your summary button procedure. There's one other procedure in there called the page load procedure. And I just want to remind you how to do that. You're going to come up to the top drop down list and you're going to scroll up and select page events. And then in the drop down list on the right, you're going to pick load. And that's how you create that page load event. And the page load event is important because what we're doing when we're dealing with a web page, we lose the value of our module level variables. So we have to deal with them a little bit differently. What we have to do is we have to place them in a hidden field. That's one thing I didn't mention in our form. There's actually a control called a hidden field control. And if we drag up in our toolbox toolbar, we can find it. Here it is, hidden field. We're going to drag that into the bottom left-hand corner of our form. And this hidden field control, I don't know, do they show that? Yeah, they do show it. It's called the discount hidden field and discount hidden field. And as far as setting the properties for that, all we have to do for that is just basically give it a name. And then in our code, let me just go back into my default code. Notice that our window where we're creating our form, I just want to mention, has 3 modes in the bottom left corner. When we're in design mode, we're just looking at the form. When we're in source mode, we're looking at the HTML that's being generated to create this form. And when we're in split mode, we're looking at both. So I'm going to go back to design. Okay, just in case you wanted to see your HTML behind the scenes, you can look at the HTML being generated. I'm going to go back to design. So to get back into my code, I'm just going to double click my submit button there. But what I was talking about in the page load event is in order to keep the state, it's called state, which really means keep the value of our module level variable, which we're using to add up all the summaries. Every time the user makes a purchase, we're adding the discount that they get to our discount summary. And then when we want to display the discounts, we click discount summary. And that's going to be displayed in our discount summary or discount total label that I didn't add yet. But anyway, getting back to the code, in our load procedure, what we're doing is we're hiding the value of our discount total in our summary button procedure. We're placing it in the hidden field. Then in our page load, if it's not the first load, that's what that if statement, if postback means. If postback means if it's not the first time you're loading the form, if you've already had a transaction occur. If it's postback, it's not the first time, and we have a value in our hidden field, then we're going to bring that hidden field value back in and put it into the discount total decimal field. Okay, so that's what that page load event is all about. I think you should be able to get the rest of the logic and the rest of the controls that you need to add. Good luck with that. Email me if you have any questions, and I'll leave you guys for now, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.